Connecticut is so lucky to have a variety of wild birds close to home, and today we're going to learn how weather patterns influence bird movement and migration. Patrick Cummins has always been fascinated by weather and is the director of bird conservation for Audubon Connecticut, as well as a WX Ed contributor. Welcome to the show. You obviously brought some friends with you today.
Thank you, Teresa.
First off, tell me a little bit about Audubon Connecticut.
Sure. We are the state office of the National Audubon Society, and we focus on bird conservation in the state. We're trying to conserve birds and their habitats and also educate people about why they should care about birds and why birds are so cool.
Great. And you have Sophia today with you, who is an owl of some sort. Tell us a little about her.
Yeah, Sophia is a barred owl. And they're a bird that you can find throughout Connecticut. They live in woodlands, particularly wet woodlands. Okay. They eat small rodents, small birds, and even snakes and amphibians, frogs and salamanders and the like. She's about 8 years old. She was rehabilitated by our folks up at the Sharon Audubon Center, and she was found to be imprinted. That is, she thinks she's a human. Oh. Somebody probably had taken her out of the nest. It got to be too much to take care of her, and then they released her, but she couldn't catch food. So we brought her back to health, but we found out we couldn't release her, so she now is one of our ambassador animals. She is a spectacular bird.
Does the lights, are they bothering her? She's happy to be here?
Yeah, she seems to be fine. You know, there are nocturnal animals. You hear them a lot more often than you see them. They do a whoo, 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 type call. And it's really neat when you have two of them going back and forth. It's one of the coolest sounds you can hear in Connecticut.
What does Sophia eat?
Well, she eats chipmunks, rodents, flying squirrels, other birds, if she can find them at night. Basically anything small enough for her to catch.
Got it. All right. Who else do you have with you?
Well, we have Bob, who's an American kestrel. Let's get her back in her box.
Thanks for coming, Sophia. You're a good sport. Now, how did you acquire Bob?
Bob was taken from a nest illegally by somebody. It's illegal to possess these animals. They are actually a state-threatened species in Connecticut, the American kestrel is. And it was confiscated by the state of Connecticut, and we have a license to keep these animals. He is beautiful.
Look at him.
These are spectacular. This is another bird you can find here in Connecticut. They used to be quite abundant, but they're a lot less common than they used to be. They like open farmlands and grasslands. They nest in cavities. There's a lot of efforts, including at Audubon Sharon, to bring back the habitat for them, to protect grasslands, and to provide nest boxes for them and to monitor those nest boxes. We're having a lot of success. The bird is starting to come back, but they are still a state-threatened species in Connecticut.
Bob was singing before, too.
Yeah. And you could hear the sound he makes. They are a type of falcon, which are actually not very closely related to hawks. Turns out they're more closely related to songbirds and parrots than they are to hawks and eagles. That's just some new information we learned through genetics. But you know, in the case of convergent evolution, they act like hawks. They typically eat birds, although this guy likes insects a lot. Okay. He will catch small birds, but he likes dragonflies, grasshoppers, things like that.
Well, let me ask you about, Pat, how the weather patterns affect birds here in Connecticut.
Sure. Birds are creatures of the air, and their movements are almost entirely dependent on winds. Winds can bring them off course. They just help them decide when they're going to migrate. You can, on a May day, May is peak of migration for shorebirds and for land birds. You can know whether it's going to be a good day to go to the shore or go out birding in your neighborhood inland, or just stay inside just by looking at the weather. And you can even look at the radar the night before, because a lot of these birds fly at night, and see blobs on the radar that meteorologists call ground clutter, but we call birds. And you can figure out if there might be birds out there the next morning.
That's pretty interesting stuff. Now, Pat, you also contribute to our WX Edge website. You have some articles there?
Yeah, recently I just put out an article last week about a brown booby that was found in Connecticut, the first ever seen in the state of Connecticut. And this was brought here probably by southerly winds ahead of this cold front. And that's a bird from the Caribbean.
Oh, wow. How did that even happen? That's
It's
weird.
just amazing. It was seen off of Norwalk. It landed on somebody's oyster boat. We got a photo of it. I emailed some birders down in that part of the state. They went out and relocated it. It actually landed on one of the birders' boats and rode it all the way into the harbor. It was an amazing bird. So that's on WX Edge. Recently, I did a big weekend where I went and see how many species of birds I could find over the course of a weekend. We found
how much did you find?
About 168 species over the course of a weekend.
Kidding.
It was a blast. We raised money for bird conservation. You can check out the article to find out how you could help out with that. But you know, it was twofold for that, and also just raise awareness about birds. Most people don't realize we have over 400 species of birds that have been seen in Connecticut.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Let me ask you about some upcoming events at Audubon Connecticut.
Sure. On June 2nd, at Cove Island Park, we have an International Migratory Bird Day celebration, a little bit late. That was in May, but we're going to talk about how you can improve your own habitats for your own yard for birds. We've done a lot of work to improve Cove Island Park in Stamford. And also, we will be on June 15th, we have a lecture coming up at our Audubon Center in Greenwich, which you can find out more about on our website.
Very good. Well, Pat, thank you so much for bringing Bob and Sophia along. It's been really interesting stuff.
Yes, you're welcome, and thank you for having me.
All right. Patrick, again, as we mentioned, is a WXEdge contributor. You can find more information by visiting WXEdge.com. Stay with us. More Connecticut Style after the break. We'll be right back.